My son and his wife left me a list of chores and drove away without saying goodbye. The paper was taped to my coffee cup. Mow the backfield, clean their bathroom, repair the guest room door, move my tool chest into the garage. Then, beneath the line Brooke had drawn twice, came 2 chores no one should assign another adult. Sign the white care form. Put the house title folder on the kitchen counter.
I read those lines 3 times. Then I folded the list, packed one overnight bag, took my title folder from the fireproof box, and drove away. By noon, I knew my son had already asked a court to declare me incompetent. My name is Henry Dalton. I was 72 years old, widowed, and still capable of deciding whether my bathroom needed cleaning. Eric and Brooke had moved into my house 11 months earlier, after his construction supply business began losing contracts. They said they needed 6 weeks. I gave them the guest room, cleared half the garage, and stopped asking when 6 weeks would end. At first, the notes were small. Please let the plumber in, pick up groceries, feed Brooke's dog, then please disappeared. The lists grew longer. They left before breakfast, came home after dinner, and spoke about my house as if I were the caretaker assigned to keep it ready for them. I tolerated too much because Eric was my son, and debt had changed the way he carried his shoulders. I knew shame could make a man controlling when he felt powerless everywhere else, but shame did not need my title papers. The white care form sat beneath the chore list. Its first page described a voluntary wellness assessment. The last page did 2 different jobs in smaller print. It released my medical, financial, and property records to Eric. Then it said I approved any care transition and property decisions he had already made as my representative. I had never agreed to that. If I signed, Eric could point to that page later and call any earlier use of my name a family misunderstanding. Instead of an act I had never authorized, the title folder instruction frightened me more. My house was paid for. My late wife and I had spent 28 years removing every mortgage payment from it 1 month at a time. The bank could verify ownership from public records. It did not need my paper deed. But the folder held our owner's title policy, tax statements, and closing papers. It was the trail a title reviewer or liquidation company might ask to see, and Brooke wanted it out of my hands. Eric knew where I kept that folder. He did not know I had moved it after finding the fireproof box open 2 weeks earlier. I put the white form in the bag with the list and drove to my daughter Sarah's house across town. I did not call Eric from the road. I did not announce that I was leaving. A man does not owe an explanation before protecting the papers that prove where he is allowed to sleep. Sarah opened her door and looked at the bag. "How long are you staying?" "Until I know why Eric wants my title papers." She did not celebrate being right about her brother. She carried my bag to the guest room and asked whether I wanted coffee. That was why I went to her. She offered a room before an opinion. I called my bank using the number on my monthly statement. The fraud officer found a pending home equity application for $410,000. Eric had submitted it as my agent under a power of attorney. I had never signed a power of attorney giving him that authority. The document was written as a springing power. It claimed Eric's authority began only when I could no longer manage my own affairs. It also carried the name and seal of the notary who had handled an old truck sale for me. The bank placed an immediate fraud hold before any money moved. Closing had already paused while its authority team independently checked whether that springing power had actually become active. The file cited my supposed move into supervised care. The bank could stop its own loan. It could not decide whether the document was forged or whether I was competent. The officer asked if I had recently entered a care facility. No. There is an admission date listed for next week. I looked at Sarah. She sat down without making a sound. The facility was called Harbor Pines. I had toured it once with my wife when we were helping a neighbor. It was a legitimate memory care center, not a prison. Someone had used its name to make a pending loan look like part of an orderly transition. That was when I made my evidence decision. I hired a licensed investigator experienced in elder financial cases. He would verify real appointments Eric and Brooke had already made and lawfully document their voluntary business conduct under our fictional state's rules. He would not enter their private room, record inside a vehicle, invent a buyer, impersonate a doctor, or coach Sarah into provoking her brother. "I am not asking you to trap my son," I said. "Good," he answered. "A real plan leaves real appointments." I called my attorney. He found an emergency guardianship petition filed that morning. Eric claimed I had wandered away from home twice, left the stove burning, confused bank accounts, and become vulnerable to Sarah's influence. The petition included a care evaluator report recommending immediate supervised placement. I had never met the evaluator. The first hearing was scheduled in 5 days. My attorney said the court might consider temporary restrictions sooner if it believed I was missing or in danger. My first responsibility was not catching Eric. It was proving that I was safe, present, and able to speak for myself. Sarah drove me to an independent medical assessment chosen through my attorney, not through anyone in the family. I answered questions about dates, money, medication, and what I would do if smoke filled a kitchen. I had repaired school buses for 36 years. I knew the difference between a warning light and an engine failure. Aging had given me warning lights. It had not handed my steering wheel to Eric. The evaluator found no basis for emergency incapacity. That did not prove the power of attorney was forged. It did make it harder to remove me before the court heard my voice. She also asked what help I was willing to accept. That question mattered. Competence did not require pretending I could lift transmissions forever or remember every appointment without a calendar. I told her Sarah handled online forms when websites confused me. A neighbor drove me after eye appointments. I used a pill organizer because the labels all looked alike before breakfast. Needing help was not the same as surrendering choice. Eric's petition blurred those two things on purpose. It turned my hearing aids into evidence I could not understand conversation. It turned a dented fender from 3 years earlier into proof I wandered. It described the day I forgot Brooke's dog grooming appointment as a memory crisis, though Brooke had never told me the time. The evaluator wrote down what I could do, what help I chose, and what decisions remained mine. We filed notice that I was represented, safe, and contesting the petition. The judge declined to sign an immediate placement order without the scheduled hearing. That was the first small victory. No one could put me into Harbor Pines that afternoon. But the guardianship case remained open. So did the question of who created the documents. Eric called Sarah 16 times that evening. She answered once with me beside her. "Dad is safe," she said. "You took him. He drove here. He cannot make that decision right now." I leaned toward the phone. I made it before breakfast. Eric went silent. Then he changed his voice from angry son to patient caregiver. "Dad, you left without telling anyone. That proves what we are worried about. You left first. We gave you a simple routine. You asked for my title papers, for safekeeping. Then bring the power of attorney with my original signature to court." He hung up. The next morning, police came to Sarah's door for a welfare check. Eric had reported me as a confused missing adult manipulated by my daughter. I showed identification, answered their questions, and told them about the court filing. They saw I was safe. They did not decide the family dispute on the porch. One officer asked whether I wanted to return home. I looked at the folded chore list on Sarah's table. Not while the people asking for my title papers control the locks. The officer documented my choice. Eric's report became his countermove. If he could make my departure look like wandering, and Sarah's help look like abduction, every decision I made afterward could be described as proof of decline. For the rest of that day, relatives called Sarah instead of me. Eric had told them she removed my phone, emptied my accounts, and would not let him speak to me. My phone was on the table. My accounts were frozen only against the disputed loan. Sarah had offered to leave the room each time I answered. I called my older cousin and asked one question. "Who told you I could not speak?" "Eric said you were resting." "I am drinking coffee." There was an embarrassed silence. That was how the story spread. No single lie sounded large enough to challenge. Resting, overwhelmed, forgetful, protected from stress. Together, those gentle words built a room in which everyone discussed me without opening the door. I asked Sarah not to defend me in group messages. I sent one note in my own name saying I was safe, represented, and available to speak directly. Then I stopped arguing with people who preferred Eric's version because it required less courage from them. Sarah worried the strategy would work. "You stayed with him because he was in debt," she said. "Now he will say that proves you cannot judge people. Trusting the wrong person once is not incompetence. What if the judge thinks I pushed you?" Then I answer, "You do not answer for me." That boundary protected Sarah too. She was my witness and daughter, not my replacement guardian. Eric had not always treated help as ownership. At 16, he rebuilt the carburetor on my lawn tractor and refused payment because, he said, sons did not charge fathers for Saturday work. When his mother became ill, he drove her to appointments Sarah could not attend. He knew how to be useful without keeping score. His business changed him slowly. A late supplier payment became a temporary bridge. A second loan became proof the market would turn. When Brooke began organizing the books, every family asset became something she described as sitting idle. My workshop was unused inventory. My spare rooms were wasted rental income. My paid-off house was trapped equity. And I was a signature standing between their debt and relief, understanding that dissent did not excuse it. It explained why Eric could still sound like a worried son while asking strangers to remove my choices. He had learned to rename every boundary as selfishness and every theft as a rescue plan. The investigator found the first appointment through a business card Brooke had left beside the tool chest instructions. An estate liquidation company was scheduled to inventory my garage, workshop, dining furniture, and several pieces my wife had inherited. The appointment date was 2 days after the planned Harbor Pines admission. The company had been shown the disputed power of attorney. Its owner suspended any pickup when my attorney notified him that I contested Eric's authority. He also agreed to preserve the genuine consultation already scheduled. His commercial office disclosed recording for customer meetings, and the public loading court outside was open to customers and delivery crews. The investigator could document that real business contact. He could not create a sale or ask anyone to discuss private life unrelated to the transaction. The second appointment was at Harbor Pines. The facility had received a proposed admission packet from Brooke. Staff had not met me and had not approved admission. The report attached to the packet carried the name of an outside care evaluator. When contacted through counsel, that evaluator said she had never examined me and had not approved the report. Now we had 3 disputed documents: the power of attorney, the care report, the loan application. The investigator compared dates rather than making accusations. The power of attorney was supposedly signed on a Tuesday when I had spent the day at the county garage helping an old co-worker restore a bus for a museum. 4 people had seen me there. The document listed Brooke as the witness, though she had been posting photographs from a conference 200 miles away. The notary named on the acknowledgement checked her electronic log and found no appointment with me. She confirmed she had not met me that day. The image of her seal matched the one on my old truck sale packet, down to a pale scratch across the final digit. My supposed signature matched the one on an old truck title Eric had copied when he helped me sell the vehicle. It carried the same unusual flat mark where the original pen had skipped. The care report was created 3 days after Brooke spoke with Harbor Pines about available rooms. The evaluator's office had no appointment, invoice, or case under my name. The loan application used the same disputed power and described my admission as confirmed. Those mismatches strengthened my protection request. They still did not tell us whether Eric knew Brooke had created the report, or whether Brooke knew he submitted the loan. That distinction mattered. Family suspicion could not replace evidence merely because the pattern looked ugly. Paper could show what someone tried to do. It could not yet show who knew the papers were false. Eric and Brooke returned to my house on the third day and found my bag, title folder, and tool chest gone. I had not taken the tool chest. Sarah and I had moved it to a bonded storage unit after my attorney documented every item. The tools belonged to me, and the liquidation company had already been promised access to them. Eric sent a message. "You stole property from the family home." I answered with one sentence. "My property is secured pending court review." Brooke sent a photograph of the empty garage space and wrote, "This is exactly the kind of erratic behavior the report described. They were turning every act of protection into evidence for control." I could have returned with police and demanded entry. Instead, I changed the bank passwords, froze new credit, and asked the court for a temporary order preventing anyone from using the disputed power of attorney before the hearing. The judge scheduled that request with the guardianship matter. Until then, the bank hold protected the loan and the liquidation company protected the property. Protection was incomplete. Eric and Brooke still lived in my home. They still had access to mail, files, and whatever story they could tell about the months before I left. The investigator attended the estate company meeting the next afternoon in his disclosed professional role. Eric brought the disputed power of attorney. Brooke brought a typed inventory of my belongings. She had assigned prices beside my wife's dining set, my drill press, the grandfather clock, and the cedar chest Sarah wanted to keep in the family. She had even listed the canvas overnight bag I carried to Sarah's house. The estate owner asked whether sentimental items should be excluded. Brooke said, "Henry will not remember most of them once he settles." Eric corrected her. "He remembers. He just cannot make practical decisions about value." That sentence told the investigator something important. Eric was no longer claiming I had forgotten my life. He was claiming my attachment to it made me unfit to control it. The owner pointed to my drill press. "Who authorized this price?" "I did," Eric said. "Do you have an appraisal?" "My authority does not require one." The owner closed the inventory. "Disputed authority requires me to stop." Eric said the court would confirm his guardianship within days. Brooke said I had already entered memory care. That lie mattered. I was sitting in Sarah's kitchen drinking coffee when she said it. The owner ended the meeting and kept copies for counsel. Through the glass, Eric watched the investigator sit back down with the owner. Then Eric and Brooke walked toward the far end of the public loading court, where ordinary commercial recording and lawful observation were permitted. They believed the distance and delivery noise kept their voices from anyone inside. They stood beside a stack of empty moving crates and began blaming each other. "He never signed the power," Brooke said. "You copied the truck title signature because you said he would sign once Harbor Pines called. The care evaluator never approved that report. You used her name, and you filed it." A delivery cart rattled across the court. Then Brooke said, "The 410 stays blocked until the bank clears the authority review." Eric answered, "Then keep him at Harbor Pines until they confirm the springing power is active. That could take 30 days. Then 30 days. Your father is not confused. He is stubborn." The court does not know the difference yet. The investigator preserved the recording without approaching them. The conversation was not a complete confession. It was two people assigning responsibility for documents both knew were false. The clear section established that I had not signed the power, the evaluator had not approved the report, and the home equity amount was $410,000. It also showed why they needed Harbor Pines. Admission was not collateral for the loan. They meant to use it as proof that their false, springing authority had taken effect. The delivery cart covered several quieter lines on the first listening. The investigator transferred the original file through counsel. A forensic audio examiner made a certified listening copy by reducing the cart noise while preserving the untouched original. I listened with Sarah. She covered her mouth when Eric said I was stubborn, not confused. "He knows," she whispered. That was the human fact beneath every document. Eric knew I could decide. His plan required everyone else to stop believing me. My attorney told me the recovered portion concerned Sarah and what Eric planned to do if I called from Harbor Pines. He did not turn it into a preview speech. I authorized him to submit the complete recording. That choice hurt more than packing the bag. Once a court heard my son discuss keeping me in a facility to release money, there would be no return to the story that stress had caused a misunderstanding. The bank fraud officer called that evening. The loan package included a projected use of funds, business debt, equipment replacement, and care transition costs. No line said sell Henry's tools or keep Henry from answering calls. The forms used clean language for a plan that depended on taking my voice away. She confirmed no funds had moved. The hold would remain until the court addressed Eric's claimed authority. Sarah asked whether that meant we had won. "It means the house is safe tonight. You always answer one day at a time. That is how most repairs work." She laughed, then began crying before the laugh finished. "I keep thinking if I had visited more, he could not have told anyone I abandoned you. His lie is not measured by your calendar, but I did get busy. So did I. Love can survive an unanswered call. Fraud needs us to confuse guilt with permission." She wiped her face and asked to read the chore list again. This time she stopped at the instruction to move my tool chest. "They wanted you to prepare your own liquidation. They wanted it to look ordinary." That was what frightened us both. The plan had entered my house dressed as errands. Eric learned about the recording when the court exhibit list was exchanged. Both sides received the full file and transcript before the hearing. Eric could not claim ambush. The remaining danger was whether the judge would admit it and what she could lawfully do with it. His attorney challenged its context and legality. Brooke submitted a new affidavit claiming the conversation referred to voluntary respite care and a loan I had approved months earlier. Eric also amended his petition. He said Sarah had isolated me, emptied my garage, coached my capacity evaluation, and hired an investigator to manufacture evidence. He sent me one private message before his attorney stopped direct contact. "You are destroying my life over paperwork." I stared at the sentence for a long time. When Eric was 8, he broke a neighbor's window and hid the baseball glove behind my workbench. I made him carry his saved allowance across the street and apologize. He cried because, in his mind, the punishment had created the damage. Children often believe consequences are the moment harm becomes real. At 51, he was making the same mistake with larger glass. I did not answer the message. I preserved it with the other records and let the court hear actions instead of my anger. The judge ordered that I speak privately with a court-appointed evaluator before the hearing. I agreed. If I demanded that everyone trust only the professionals I selected, I would be asking for the same blind loyalty Eric expected from family. The court evaluator met me without Sarah, Eric, or my attorney answering questions. She asked where I wanted to live, what assets I owned, what support I would accept, and whether I understood the risks of returning home. "My son may have forged documents," I said. "That does not make every memory I have about him false. It does make shared control unsafe." Her report found that I understood the proceedings and could direct my own legal and financial decisions. The night before the hearing, my attorney practiced questions with me. He asked why I had packed a bag instead of confronting Eric. Because confrontation would warn him before the loan was frozen. He asked whether leaving my own home was irrational. Staying beside disputed papers because someone might call me confused would have been fear, not judgment. He asked whether I wanted Eric punished. I took longer with that one. I want him stopped. What punishment follows belongs to the evidence and the court. Sarah listened from the hallway. When the practice ended, she handed me the folded chore list. "Do not let them make you ashamed that this hurt," she said. I put the list in my jacket. Competence did require to speaking about betrayal as if it were a maintenance problem. The hearing began the next morning. Eric and Brooke sat behind their attorneys. Sarah sat behind mine. The bank sent a fraud witness. The licensed investigator waited outside until called. The judge began with the purpose of the hearing. Whether emergency guardianship or protective restrictions were necessary, not whether anyone was already guilty of a crime. Eric had described the chore list in his sworn statement as ordinary household support. When he testified, my attorney handed the original paper to him. "Do you recognize this?" "Yes. Please read the final 2 instructions." Eric looked toward his attorney, then read them aloud. "Sign the white care form. Put the house title folder on the kitchen counter." The judge looked at Eric. Why was the title folder a chore? Eric said it was for safekeeping during my planned admission. My attorney asked whether the same folder contained the title, policy, and tax information requested for the proposed property transition. Eric said he did not remember. The bank witness testified that no money had been released because I disputed a $410,000 application submitted under the challenged power of attorney. The independent evaluators both found me capable. Harbor Pines confirmed it had never approved an admission. The care evaluator denied authoring the report bearing her name. Eric's attorney argued that those facts still did not prove who created the papers. He was right. That was why I had accepted the cost of the recording. My attorney asked permission to play the complete certified listening copy in Sarah's presence. Eric and Brooke were already before the court with counsel. The judge admitted it for the limited guardianship and asset protection questions, subject to later criminal review. The investigator authenticated the source. And the examiner's certificate explained that noise had been reduced without altering the preserved original. The judge told the clerk to press play. Brooke's recorded voice filled the courtroom. "He never signed the power." Eric answered, "You copied the truck title's signature." Sarah closed her eyes. The recording continued through the false care report and the $410,000 loan. Then came the section the delivery cart had masked on first listening. Eric's lawyer had received it before the hearing. So had mine. The surprise was not that the file existed. It was hearing my son's words fill a room where he could no longer rename them. Brooke said, "Sarah will object." Eric answered, "I told the clerk she has not seen him in 2 years. She was at his birthday last month. Then say she came for money." The sound of the cart faded. Brooke asked, "What happens to the tools if the court delays?" "Sell them as soon as he is admitted. The 410 covers the business debt, and the tools cover what is already due next Friday. And if he asks to leave Harbor Pines?" Eric's reply was quiet and clear. "Do not take his calls until the loan closes. Once the court gives me control, wanting to leave becomes another symptom." Sarah gripped the bench in front of her. The court evaluator stopped taking notes. Eric stared at the table. The playback had added what the first excerpt did not: the lie about Sarah, the sale deadline, the business debt motive, and the plan to reinterpret my objections after confinement. The judge ended the file before anyone turned the hearing into an argument. Eric's attorney requested a recess. After the recess, the judge ruled. Before announcing the order, she asked me 3 questions. "Where do you want to live?" "In my house." "Whom do you trust to help, if you choose help?" "Sarah for emergency contact. My attorney for documents. Neither gets control merely because I trust them." "What contact do you want with Eric today?" I looked at my son. He had taught me how to use video calls during my wife's last illness. He had also asked a court to treat my wish to leave a facility as a symptom. Only through counsel while this is investigated. The judge wrote each answer down. My plan was not perfect independence. It was chosen support with named limits. She denied the emergency guardianship petition. She prohibited Eric and Brooke from using the disputed power of attorney, ordered preservation of my home and personal property, and barred them from interfering with my accounts, mail, medical choices, or residence while the forgery claims were investigated. She also directed the clerk to send the authenticated record to the Financial Crimes Unit and Adult Protection Authorities. The bank fraud witness confirmed the $410,000 application was closed and the property hold removed from my legitimate account profile. Those were formal actions, not a family agreement. They protected my house and my right to walk out of the courtroom under my own name. The judge did not sentence anyone to prison that morning. She had ruled on guardianship and immediate protection, not criminal guilt. Later that afternoon, investigators matched the power of attorney signature to the truck title image, verified the false report's origin, confirmed the liquidation inventory, and obtained the filing records for the care document. A separate judge approved search and arrest warrants. The following morning, police arrested Eric and Brooke on probable cause involving forgery, attempted financial exploitation, false filings, and conspiracy to deprive me of control over my property. Within several weeks, prosecutors filed charges. Both pleaded not guilty. The case continued. No sentence appeared overnight, and no arrest repaired the fact that my son had called my voice a symptom. My attorney used the protective order to begin the lawful process of ending Eric's and Brooke's access to the house. A neutral property worker inventoried their belongings, and counsel arranged collection and storage. I stayed away. I did not watch. The goal was to end access, not create a photograph of their humiliation. Eric sent one letter through counsel. It did not apologize. It said the loan would have saved his employees. Harbor Pines was temporary, and I had chosen Sarah over him. I returned it without a personal reply. My attorney answered that no family emergency authorized forged control. Any future conversation would require Eric to acknowledge what he had done, comply with court orders, and stop treating contact as access to my property. I did not know whether those conditions would ever be met. For the first time, not knowing did not make me loosen them. Harbor Pines closed the false intake file. The estate company canceled the sale. My tools stayed in bonded storage until the court permitted their return. When the tool chest finally came back, the scratches on its side looked exactly as they had before. I opened every drawer. The sockets were still arranged by size. My wife's small gardening shears were still wrapped in cloth at the back. I had spent days to defend $410,000 and a house. The thing that made me sit down was finding those shears where I had left them. I remained with Sarah for another week. She never asked me to stay forever. That mattered. On the morning I went home, she placed my overnight bag by the door. "Do you want me to come in with you? For coffee? Anything else?" "Let me find out." The house smelled closed when I entered. Eric's television was gone from the living room. Brooke's decorative pillows were gone from my wife's chair. The silence did not feel peaceful yet. It felt unused. Sarah opened the curtains while I checked each room. The guest room door still scraped the floor, exactly as the old list had said. A faucet dripped in the bathroom. Grass showed through the kitchen window in uneven waves. The house had not collapsed because I left work undone. That realization embarrassed me. For months, Eric and Brooke had trained every unfinished task to feel like evidence against me. A full sink meant I was failing. An unmowed strip meant I was unreliable. Resting before the work was done meant age had defeated me. I had begun measuring my right to live there by how useful I remained to the people using the house. Sarah found 2 coffee cups and rinsed them. "I can fix the door before I go," she said. "No." She looked surprised. "Because you want to do it? Because I want coffee first." We sat at the kitchen table while the faucet continued dripping. Nothing terrible happened. No judge appeared because the hinge waited another hour. The original chore list had been returned after the hearing. I unfolded it at the kitchen table. Mow the backfield, clean their bathroom, repair the guest room door, move my tool chest, sign away, information, set out the title folder. The first 4 chores were ordinary work. What made the list cruel was not labor. I had worked all my life. It was the assumption that my time, home, hands, and signature belonged to whoever wrote on the paper. I put the list in the case file. Then I took a clean sheet from the drawer and wrote a heading. Things I choose this week. Bring the tool chest home. Have coffee with Sarah on Thursday. Repair the guest room door because it sticks in wet weather. Leave the back field until Saturday call. No one, unless I want to. I pinned the new list above the kitchen table where the old one had been taped to my cup. Sarah read it and smiled. You still gave yourself chores. There was never anything wrong with work. Outside, the grass was higher than Eric liked it. I poured 2 cups of coffee and left it that way. For the first time in a year, every line in my house belonged to the man who had to live it.